coming to BIA Kelsey Now, Seattle. This is our second show in our local OnDemand Economy conference series. My name is Mitch Ratcliffe. I'll be your host today. We're also joined by Mike Boland of BIA Kelsey, Abid Chaudhry of BIA Kelsey, and Stacy Sedbrook, as well as Greg Johnson of BIA Financial, our investment banking arm. And we want to welcome you to Seattle. This is my home, and it's an honor to be able to bring people together up here to talk about the on-demand economy, because Seattle has very much put itself at the forefront in the development of this new economic model. And I want to thank you for coming, because I remember the first BIA Kelsey, or the Kelsey conference that I went to about 25 years ago, and it was about newspaper advertising on the internet. Now that was a crazy idea. And there were probably 45 people in the room in New York. And we all wondered what we were doing there. And now looking back, many of those people are industry leaders today, running companies or running entire sections of the industry because they took the time to understand this market early in its life. And the on-demand economy is something that we believe is going to be as transformative as the internet. That isn't a singular technological change, but a whole confluence of changes, which I'd like to just walk through very quickly and explain to you. On-demand work, the idea that you don't need to have a bench of people waiting to do things. Rather, you can just tap them for their expertise when they're needed, and then let them go back to doing whatever they would like to be doing when they're not working, is a really compelling idea. And we talk about it in terms of flexibility, but we also talk about it in terms of everything getting a lot less expensive. This is partly due to several factors that we are continuing to work through as a society. We have not completed the integration of women into the economy yet. Women today do more than twice as much work that's uncompensated in the home and in the community than men do. And what we're in the process of doing is pricing all of that work that would have typically been uncounted in the GDP into the paid economy. Now, of course, that means that people are going to need to be able to make enough money doing that kind of labor that they can trade that labor for other things they might do. And so it's very fitting that things like getting around town, grocery shopping, doing the laundry are the first areas we're seeing the on-demand economy start to take hold. And I'll talk more about this in a moment, but keeping that notion that there's a whole lot of unpaid labor unpriced right now is a key notion for understanding where the on-demand economy is going to take hold and grow from. The other thing is that we know that the global lifespan, the global educational level, and the global work capacity is rising overall. And as a result, offshoring or outsourcing has become a standard part of American business and is becoming a part of all business globally. And that means that there's a lot more competition, and thus there's a lot of price pressure on labor today. And so on-demand work represents the beginning of a transition and a new negotiation of the social relationship that, like the internet, 20 years ago it would have been lunatic to think that you could set up a press and have 20 million people paying attention within a few weeks if you launched your application appropriately. Today, we're on the verge of being able to have completely virtual organizations that bring together talent very rapidly. So how big is this going to get? Well, we projected that the revenue this year, the addressable revenue that would be achieved by the on-demand economy would be about $18.5 billion, and we were wrong. We were a little bit low. What in fact we believe is about $22 billion was spent on demand. Now that's Uber, Lyft, Washio, the whole range of companies that are involved in this industry. And about half of this is currently being spent in driving. It's the easiest way to activate on-demand labor right now. Very interchangeable work, and people can do it quickly, move in and out of it. Now, the reason that we estimate that that went up is when we did our projections last year, we took a look at all of the unpaid labor in the economy, as well as the existing industries that are going to be impacted by on-demand, such as the taxi industry. And we estimated that 18% of the people in the United States had both convenient access to and sufficient income to spend $17 an hour on on-demand work. And as a result, we calculated that the total addressable market for the year was $465 billion across all of those different home and work-related uses of on-demand. Now, Burstyn Marsteller and the Aspen Institute in January 2016 did a survey and asked how many people had used the on-demand economy last year. Well, 44% of the people said that they had tried it. So a lot more people used the on-demand economy than we estimated could last year. That also didn't turn into 4 times as much revenue as you would expect, because there's a great deal of price competition. Uber and Lyft, for instance, have lowered their prices by almost 50% over the course of the last year in competition trying to win market share. And so it turns out that there was about $22 billion in actual spending. In 2016, across the entire range of home work that we described a few minutes ago, we estimate that there's a $510 billion addressable market this year. And this is childcare, house cleaning, food prep, Instacart going shopping for you. All of these things are taking portions of previously unpriced labor and bringing them into the economy, as well as pulling revenue away from established industries, like the dry cleaning industry, like the grocery industry. And so we estimate that this year, this market could reach $510 billion in addressable revenue. This also assumes that you're paying about $17 an hour for an on-demand service, which is roughly $1 higher than the average income in the United States on an hourly basis. The numbers get really huge when you start to project this out. Now, today, the US economy is about $17.4 trillion, and about $6 trillion of unpaid household labor is going on and is not included in that figure at all. You project this forward to 2030, and you also project forward increases in minimum wage to roughly $24 an hour. And we're talking about $3.1 trillion in new transactional revenue that does not exist in the current economy in 2030. Again, this is only in the home use area. So this is based on an analysis of the American Time Use Survey, which tracks unpaid labor in the home. This is going to be accretive to the rest of the economy. This is not necessarily going to pull away money from previously existing industries. This is all potentially new revenue. And this is very similar to what has happened as we have priced in farm labor, uncompensated labor that was being performed in the home primarily by men prior to this. The home and gardening industry, for instance, we didn't used to calculate into the GDP because everybody thought it was a hobby, but it turns out it's an industry, and an industry worth about $70 billion. So as we project forward, we're talking about a massive change in the lower level income layer of the economy. And at the same time, these are huge industries that are going to be shifting from traditional employment models to on-demand models and creating a multiple of $3.1 trillion in changed revenue and an opportunity for people to take a part of that. Now, what's the result of that? And that is that every business needs to be thinking about how to compete in this environment. We're going to look at 4 aspects of that today. We're going to start off with technology, with Robert Scoble talking about what he's seen recently in the form of VR and augmented reality, new marketing opportunities, and the concierge economy is the way that he describes it. We're also going to listen to a number of visionaries in customer experience and brand design. So these are the creative start of the day. And we're going to base that in technology and then move forward to 3 other areas. The first is the notion of on-demand labor and what the right relationship between a worker and a company might look like in the future. Seattle's been on the forefront of doing that. We've passed legislation here that allows drivers to unionize, for instance. And that legislation may not go very far because of certain legal considerations, and we'll talk about that. We're going to hear from some on-demand labor people about what they want from this economy. What are they looking for besides flexibility, which is the thing we hear about all the time. And then we're going to turn to the practical matter of running and operating these businesses. We'll talk about a variety of tools. We'll look at some demos. And we'll meet the leaders of companies like Uber, Avo, here, HomeAdvisor, and talk about how building these marketplaces is a new and difficult challenge. And finally, we'll finish up with a talk about the role that the media can play in all this, because of course there's a huge business in creating marketing environments, advertising, and so forth. And we want to try to bring this full circle to some of B.I. Kelsey's core audience from the past as well. Now, we've had some interesting actual complaints about the on-demand labor structure of the panel later, and I want to do some disclosure of that before we begin that panel. But here's the thing that I want you to think about throughout the day. What's a brand? What's an essential company in a community? And that's something that becomes essential, that becomes necessary to everyone, something that they want to have available to them. A successful brand is part of a community. It isn't something that exists outside and compels the community to behave a certain way to get the rewards of the product or the service that the brand offers. It's a part of the community. And we're talking about how to build, just as we had to build a new internet society, a society in which people come and go from labor without a full-time job necessarily, or that companies come in and out of existence to solve problems and then disappear because the problem is solved, but the people are still looking for work. And we want to talk about what that shape of a company might look like throughout the day. So we believe that in order to be successful, you have to be connected, engaged, and really focused on optimizing your processes, the marketing and the way that you tell the story of your process, that you deliver the value that you're delivering in the market. And you have to be able to do it all now. You have to have an answer that is unique and personal to the individual, not based just on the fact that you had a mass-produced solution, but one that they've even begun to co-create and shape, something where the solution changes their lives and changes the lives even of the people who are doing the work for you as the owner of the company. So what I'm going to do now is hand it over to Robert Scoble. Are you set? Yep. Okay. So Robert Scoble, we're very pleased and honored to have him here because he sees the future for a daily job. I think he has the coolest job going. He is futurist for Rackspace, Chief Startup Liaison Officer, I believe is his exact title. And now that he is online, I will hand him over.